Let's have a conversation on women and men who specifically seek out partners in prison. Hi, my name is Dr. Natalie Jones. I'm a licensed therapist. I've been counseling men and women. I've worked for many years in the correctional system in California. I have a commenter here who's asking me what are my thoughts on women and men who seek partners specifically in prison through pen pal programs. Whenever, and I've kind of done videos about some similar subject matter before. Whenever you have people that are seeking out people that are locked up, that signals to me two different things. One, you're seeking out someone that you feel like is vulnerable and indisposed. People that are incarcerated are considered vulnerable people when they become the property of the state, legally and just just generally speaking, legally they're considered vulnerable population by law, and just in general. So to me, people think that they are getting someone who is vulnerable. So in my mind, this is a person that seeks to have some sort of control over their partner when they're doing that. Number two, they are looking for someone that can't go anywhere, and so when a person is in prison, they're in a cage, and for the most part, most of them cannot go anywhere. There have been some exceptions of people who skedaddled right on out of there, even recently, but for the most part, they can't go anywhere. And people that don't want their partners to go anywhere, or people who need to know where their partner is at all times, or people who want someone who is vulnerable, a person who's doing that right off the top is very insecure. And they want to be in control of that person and the relationship dynamics. That's why whenever you see people on love after lockup, life after lockup, a lot of those relationships, almost 9.99 times out of 10, usually fall apart, because what is an inmate going to do as soon as they get out of prison? They're going to do them. They're going to fly away. They're going to be doing everybody else. They're going to be ripping and running the streets. But even if they weren't doing that, common sense is going to tell you an inmate, they're not really in a position to be, getting married, having a family. A lot of them need to really get back into society, get their life back together, get a job, do all these other things, just reintegrate it into being out in the free world, go see their mama, all this other kind of stuff, just normal things. They need to get acclimated. A lot of them need to, if they're on parole, they need to do whatever they're mandated to do. If they're in a halfway house, they need to do whatever they're mandated to do. A lot of them may be mandated to go to treatment programs and all this other kind of stuff, probation, whatever. So, they have things that they need to do in order to get their life, in order to assimilate back into society. But then that's why those relationships don't work out, because oh my God, that person is not in a cage anymore. I don't know where they're at 24/7. I can't monitor them. Mind you, they couldn't even monitor them really in prison, because a lot of them, their partners that are incarcerated just tell them what they want to hear, but they're not necessarily telling them the truth. They're still doing what they want to do inside those prison walls. They're usually talking to 10, 20 other pen pals, getting money from them and doing whatever. Not always, but again, 9.99 times out of 10. It is very much a hustle. They're very much in survival mode, and those men and women are doing what they got to do to get their needs met, get money on their books, get canteen, get some sort of companionship, have some attention, all that kind of good stuff. And one third thing I'll say about people that usually go after people that are incarcerated, and I think this goes along with insecurity. This type of person doesn't feel confident engaging someone out in the free world. They don't feel confident in doing the traditional dating and courtship and meeting people out in the world. Typically, if they are repeatedly doing that, A lot of times they don't feel comfortable doing traditional dating. They prefer to have someone locked up, and so they may come across as socially awkward or, just otherwise. Fourth, um, they may be a criminal of themselves. Either if they're either a criminal themselves or they have a family history of having criminals in the family where it's been normalized. So an example of that would be, Mob Wives. If anybody's ever watched that show from way back in the day, a lot of those women up there talked about how, their fathers and brothers and things like that have been incarcerated, so they're used to dealing with men that have been incarcerated. Even on Real Housewives, I think Candy was talking about that. So that could be very much normalized as a part of your culture, your upbringing, and things like that. And so it could be like nothing to romanticize and deal with someone who is incarcerated, and also be addicted to, to dating those bad girls, those bad boys, those people that are about that life, that kind of thing. Number six, you know, there are people that they don't really like to date. They don't really, they're not going to, they think they do, but they don't really like that. And so it gives them a sense of being in a relationship with somebody without actually really being in a relationship. Meaning that a person could have, they could be gone physically. It's almost kind of like dating someone who's an active service member. You're pretty much single if they're gone all the time. But you might walk around with a wedding band and say you're married, but 99, 100% of the time outside of those phone calls, you're really rolling the streets and living by yourself and doing life by yourself. There are people that like the idea of being in a relationship without doing real relationship work, because in my opinion, when you're in a relationship that's long distance, if you're in a relationship where you don't really get to see your partner like that, it it takes a lot more work and a lot more time in order for that relationship to build. So if you're dating someone that's here in the flesh, you get to hug them, hold them, go to bed with them at night, do things throughout the day, that's true traditional courtship. But if all we get is one phone call that I have to pay for every day, or a couple phone calls, a phone call is not a real relationship, Meg, hun. It just doesn't do it. Texting does not make a real relationship either. Video visits don't either. You don't really know a person until you experience them in the flesh. You have them in your home and all this other kind of stuff, which is another reason why I think those couples from Love After Lockup fall apart. They don't really know who they were dealing with. Of course, an inmate is sweet as a caramel sundae with a cherry on top when you're sending them money, and when they're incarcerated, they're saying what they got to say and they're doing what they got to do to have that experience. But then when they get out, they might turn into a gremlin, or this might be a different person. And that's who they really are, because now they have their freedom back. But that's just my thoughts on, people who, they may prefer to go after people who are really truly unavailable. And it gives them that, like, they can securely say that they're in a relationship, but they're not really doing real relationship work. Writing letters, texting, and things like that. It, those, you need a heck of a lot more than that to be in a real relationship, marriage, or partnership, or for someone to be a parent, to your children. So I'm going to stand on that, and I hope that helps. Thanks so much for asking.